Rodney Howard claims he's revealing the side of Joni Lamb the public has never seen. Behind the smiles and ministry, there's a story full of tension, struggles, and hidden truths that few know about. In this exclusive insight, Rodney promises to share what really happens behind the cameras, giving a glimpse into the personal life, challenges, and choices that shaped Joni Lamb's journey in ways no one expected. You won't want to miss this. In 2023, Joni Lamb's announcement that she was in a relationship with Dr. Doug Weiss sent shockwaves through the Christian community.
Experienced before.
Exactly.
And when you come out of a deep, deep darkness, your joy and your happiness is different.
And everybody sees that.
And you measure it different, and it shows different because of the darkness that you've been through. It comes out different, and you appreciate.
You told Jimmy that Doug was texting me or sexting me. He never sexted me. He is a pure man. We didn't have sex till we got married. That he was sexting me in January after Marcus died in November is a complete lie. Well, Jonathan knows that.
For many, it felt sudden, too soon after the death of her late husband, Marcus Lamb, who had passed just months earlier. Doug, a Christian sex therapist and author, had recently finalized his own divorce after more than 30 years of marriage, which only added to the controversy. What might have been a private decision about love and companionship quickly became a public spectacle. People everywhere began asking questions. How could Joni move on so quickly? Was she truly ready for a new relationship, or was she vulnerable after so much grief? The timing alone fueled endless speculation, and those questions weren't just whispered online. They were discussed in churches, on social media, and even among respected leaders in the Christian media world. Even within her own family, reactions were mixed, and in some cases, openly disapproving. Her children, Jonathan, Rachel, and Susie, struggled to reconcile their mother's grief with her decision to marry someone new so soon. They worried not only about her emotional well-being, but also about the integrity of Daystar Television Network, the ministry she had built with Marcus. To them, the union wasn't just a personal choice. It had implications for the organization.
And when you come out of a deep, deep darkness, your joy and your happiness is different.
And everybody sees that.
And you measure it different, and it shows different because of the darkness that you've been through. It comes out different, and you appreciate it more.
Right. And he's never been loved by a woman like I was him, because he lived in a loveless marriage for so long. And he covered for his wife for years, because he always believed that somehow God would work a miracle. So yeah, he said he loved his wife. Yes, he said, I know you have questions to that, but I respect him more for covering her than uncovering her. And even at this moment, he and I are trying to be protective of her and the two kids, but she works for him and his,
which millions of viewers trusted to reflect Christian values. The family's hesitation added another layer of scrutiny as outsiders wondered whether this internal conflict would spill into public disputes or affect Daystar's credibility. The wider Christian community was quick to weigh in. Critics questioned Doug's past and whether he could be trusted as a partner after leaving a 3-decade-long marriage. Some expressed concern that Joni, still navigating deep grief, might be influenced in ways that could compromise her judgment. Supporters, however, argued that she had the right to seek happiness and that her personal life should not be dictated by public opinion. But in the world of faith-based media, personal choices rarely stay private. Every statement, every photo, and every appearance was analyzed, interpreted, and debated, turning what should have been a private chapter of her life into a national conversation. Joni's decision, intended to bring her personal joy, instead became a lightning rod for controversy, showing just how closely personal decisions can intersect with public expectations in a high-profile ministry.
And myself. The only thing I would say is this is not the first time or the 30th time I've done this.
Of course, Jimmy, and I know that talking to Lisa could have slowed it down 6 months, but would that have been a bad thing when we're all questioning every single? No, I know, but
that's their concern. They're desperate.
Every son and daughter.
The conversation we just had was about adult children in a remarriage when there's been a death, and I'm saying I give you grace for your emotions and what you're feeling, but I'm not going through what you're going through, and I've got the experience. I'm saying, Jimmy, you can trust and you can submit. or you can keep going through this wrangling, and that's all it is.
We need to process this out.
I'm not going to talk to Lisa. I didn't talk to Lisa, and I'm not going to defend myself on that.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, would it be the worst thing if it slowed down 6 months if every single offspring of these two individuals is questioning the validity of this marriage?
Your view is different.
No.
It's not going to change the Bible verses you quote.
No.
It's not going to change anything.
No,
presented today.
but again, what if?
As news of Joni Lamb's relationship with Doug Weiss spread, it wasn't long before prominent figures in the Christian community began to react. Among the most vocal was Rodney Howard Brown, a well-known revivalist preacher with a significant following. He didn't just voice quiet concerns or private advice. He made his opposition public, warning that Joni's decision could have serious spiritual consequences. According to Rodney, what was unfolding wasn't just a personal matter. It was a battle with spiritual ramifications that could affect the entire Daystar network. He claimed to have had a prophetic vision of destruction so vivid and unsettling that he struggled to find the words to describe it. In his view, the union with Doug Weiss was not merely controversial, it was dangerous, a choice that could ripple far beyond private lives and influence thousands of followers. Rodney's warnings carried weight because of his prominence and the respect he had earned in revivalist circles. He approached the situation with the fervor of someone who believed he had a spiritual responsibility to speak out. And his words were delivered with a combination of urgency and conviction that left little room for misunderstanding. But his approach was confrontational, and that created tension. Instead of reaching out privately to discuss his concerns, he took the matter public, speaking directly to Joni's children and the wider Christian community. In doing so, he escalated a deeply personal decision into a larger debate, where private feelings were measured against public expectation and prophetic authority. Other church leaders and influencers followed suit, some voicing support for Joni's right to pursue happiness, while others expressed quiet but firm opposition. The situation quickly became a litmus test for leadership in faith-based media. How should personal choices be navigated when the eyes of millions are watching? Joni was caught between her own desires for love and companionship and the expectations of those who believed her actions could impact the credibility of an entire organization. She was not just a woman making a private decision. She was a public figure whose life and choices were seen as a reflection of faith, morality, and leadership. Every step she took was scrutinized, every public appearance examined, and every statement dissected for hidden meaning. The tension wasn't only external. Within Daystar, leadership dynamics became strained as differing opinions surfaced. Some senior staff quietly supported Joni, understanding that her personal life was her own and believing that the network could remain strong regardless of her choices. Others, however, worried about the potential fallout, particularly given the timing and circumstances surrounding her relationship with Doug. They questioned whether the network could maintain its reputation and whether audiences would perceive any misalignment between personal choices and organizational values. What had started as a personal decision now intersected with operational concerns, threatening to divide staff and complicate internal communication. Joni's decision highlighted an uncomfortable reality for leaders in faith-based organizations. Private choices are rarely private, and personal happiness can become entangled with public perception and professional responsibility. Rodney's actions were a particular point of friction. By taking his opposition public, he forced a response from Joni and her family, creating an environment where every decision seemed open to critique. The preacher's warnings carried not only spiritual weight, but also social influence. His followers closely observed every development, weighing his words against what they knew of Joni, Doug, and the history of Daystar. The stakes were high. If Joni moved forward, it would appear she was defying spiritual counsel from a respected figure. If she hesitated or reversed her decision, it could be perceived as weakness or indecision. Either way, the tension created a pressure cooker environment, one where emotions ran high and personal relationships became politicized. For Joni, the situation was exhausting. She had to navigate not just her own feelings and family dynamics, but also a network of spiritual authority that had publicly questioned her judgment. She defended her choice to marry Doug, insisting that he was a man of integrity and that the accusations against him were unfounded. She was frustrated by what she saw as an unnecessary escalation, particularly because Rodney had taken his concerns to her children and the community before discussing them directly with her. From her perspective, it was less about defiance and more about protecting her autonomy and making a choice grounded in love and faith. Yet, in the court of public opinion, autonomy was often misinterpreted as rebellion or recklessness. The tension extended into broader conversations was about faith and leadership. Joni's decision prompted debates about what it means to be a leader in Christian media, the balance between personal happiness and public responsibility, and how prophetic voices should be weighed against individual choice. Some argued that as a leader, Joni had a duty to consider the wider implications of her actions. Others countered that faith also includes personal discernment, and that God's guidance could supersede public expectation. This dialogue revealed the complexity of spiritual leadership in the modern era, where visibility and influence magnify the impact of personal decisions and make private matters subject to public interpretation. Through it all, Joni remained determined to move forward. She acknowledged the warnings but insisted on making her own choice, believing that her path was guided by God. The situation was messy, emotionally charged, and highly publicized, but it also revealed the resilience required to navigate life as a visible figure in faith-based media. Leadership, she learned, comes with scrutiny that can blur the line between personal and public life, and spiritual guidance, no matter how well-intentioned, can sometimes create conflict when it collides with individual conviction. Ultimately, the saga of spiritual warnings and leadership tensions showed the delicate balance between personal freedom and public expectation. Joni's story became a case study in how decisions made from the heart can ignite intense debate in communities where faith, leadership, and influence intersect. It revealed the weight of responsibility that comes with visibility and the courage required to pursue personal truth when it challenges established authority. It was a reminder that in high-profile ministry, love, faith, and leadership are never isolated. They are always intertwined, and every choice carries consequences that ripple far beyond the individual. As the controversy surrounding Joni Lamb's marriage to Doug Weiss grew, the tension within her family and the leadership of Daystar Television Network began to surface in ways that few could have anticipated. What had started as personal joy and the promise of a new chapter in her life quickly became a source of deep division. Joni's children, Jonathan, Rachel, and Susie, found themselves caught between supporting their mother and protecting the legacy of their late father, Marcus Lamb, and the network he had helped build. For them, Doug's entry into their family's life was not a simple matter of love or companionship. It was a challenge to the structure, authority, and future of the organization their father had nurtured for decades. Jonathan, in particular, struggled with feelings of disappointment and exclusion. He had long expected to play a larger role in Daystar following Marcus's death, and the idea that his mother would make a life-altering decision outside his approval was deeply unsettling. When Joni married Doug, Jonathan's frustration only intensified. He viewed Doug as an outsider who had entered their family and the network with little regard for the established order. According to insiders, Jonathan's resentment manifested in professional conflict as well. Over a 15-month period, he reportedly refused to comply with performance improvement plans and declined to participate in formal mediation processes intended to resolve ongoing grievances. The culmination of these conflicts was his termination from Daystar, a move that only deepened the family rift and added fuel to the public controversy. Rachel and Susie, while perhaps less directly involved in the professional side of the network, were no less affected by the upheaval. They expressed concern over the speed of their mother's remarriage and questioned whether she had fully processed her grief after losing Marcus. For them, the issue was not simply about loyalty or control. It was about safeguarding the emotional well-being of their mother, while also preserving the credibility and mission of Daystar. The children's disapproval was not subtle. It was vocal enough to be noticed by family friends, staff, and even outside observers, further complicating the public narrative. Every social media post, public statement, and media appearance by Joni was examined for signs of discord or evidence that she might be ignoring her children's concerns. Meanwhile, within Daystar, the organizational challenges multiplied. Staff and leadership had to navigate a delicate situation where the personal decisions of the network's president were inextricably linked to the network's reputation. Some senior staff quietly supported Joni, believing in her judgment and her right to pursue personal happiness. Others worried about the message the marriage sent to the network's audience. In the eyes of critics, a leader who appeared to make personal choices without full consideration of family or organizational dynamics risked undermining the integrity of the network. The divide created internal tension as teams struggled to maintain operational stability while also managing the optics of a story that was rapidly becoming a national controversy in Christian media. Financial and operational implications were also at play. Doug Weiss, as a new family member and an influential figure in Joni's personal life, became part of the network's broader conversation, whether he intended to be or not. Questions arose about how his presence might influence programming decisions, ministry messaging, and even the future succession plan for Daystar leadership. For a network that reached millions and had long prided itself on a clear and consistent message, the introduction of new dynamics threatened not only day-to-day operations, but also the long-term perception of the organization in the eyes of its supporters. Adding to the complexity were external voices such as Rodney Howard Brown, who publicly opposed the marriage and warned of spiritual consequences. His statements, combined with private concerns expressed by church leaders and associates, created an environment where every internal decision at Daystar seemed subject to external judgment. The combination of family discord, organizational uncertainty, and public scrutiny turned what might have been a personal adjustment period into a full-blown crisis. Joni was faced not only with defending her personal choices, but also with ensuring that the network, the staff, and her family could continue functioning amid the growing storm of criticism and speculation. Through all of this, Joni remained steadfast in her belief that her decisions were guided by God. She maintained that Doug was a man of integrity and that their union was rooted in mutual respect and faith. Yet, the tension between family expectations, organizational responsibility, and personal autonomy was ever present. She had to balance the grief of losing Marcus, the love she felt for Doug, and the obligations she had to her children and the network. Each choice was scrutinized, each move analyzed, and the weight of public attention made even small decisions fraught with consequence. The personal became professional, and the professional became public, creating a cycle that was difficult to escape. Ultimately, the family conflict and organizational challenges surrounding Joni's marriage illustrated the fragile balance between personal happiness and leadership responsibility. It highlighted the way private decisions can ripple outward, affecting relationships, workplace dynamics, and public perception. For Daystar, it was a test of resilience, governance, and adaptability. For Joni, it was a lesson in navigating love, loss, and leadership simultaneously, under the watchful eyes of both family and the broader Christian community. Every action had meaning, every decision carried risk, and the challenge of maintaining harmony between family and organization became a defining element of her life and ministry in that period. The moment news of Joni Lamb's relationship with Doug Weiss became public, it wasn't long before the media descended. What might have been a private chapter in her life was transformed almost overnight into a spectacle dissected by reporters, commentators, and social media users alike. The combination of her high-profile position as the president of Daystar Television Network, her status as a widow of a beloved Christian leader, and the controversial timing of her remarriage created a perfect storm for scrutiny. Every detail was analyzed, debated, and amplified, leaving Joni and her family navigating not just personal challenges, but a relentless tide of public attention. Christian media outlets, in particular, were quick to seize on the story. Some sought to present it sympathetically, framing Joni as a woman who had endured profound loss and was seeking companionship and happiness. Others were far less forgiving, emphasizing the rapid timeline between Marcus Lamb's death and her relationship with Doug, questioning her judgment, and framing the union as potentially reckless or morally questionable. Headlines often highlighted controversy, fueling speculation about whether the relationship was motivated by love, convenience, or the pressures of public life. Every nuance of Doug's past and every choice Joni made were subject to scrutiny, as journalists combed through social media posts, public statements, and organizational records in search of anything that could add color or scandal to the narrative. Social media, of course, played a particularly influential role. Platforms that once celebrated Daystar's programming and Joni's ministry achievements became a forum for debate and, at times, outright criticism. Supporters expressed concern that her decisions might undermine the integrity of the network or contradict the principles Marcus had stood for, while others voiced sympathy, emphasizing her right to personal happiness. Conversations about grief, loyalty, and remarriage became trending topics in Christian media circles, with each new post or comment amplifying the story. Hashtags, shared screenshots, and opinion threads spread rapidly, ensuring that even those outside the immediate Christian community were aware of the controversy. In a sense, Joni's personal life became a case study in the challenges of living under constant public observation. Public perception was shaped not just by the media, but also by influential figures who spoke out. Rodney Howard, a revivalist preacher with a significant following, openly warned that the marriage could have spiritual consequences. His warnings were amplified by news coverage and social media, making them a central talking point in discussions about the union. For many, his opposition validated concerns about the timing and propriety of Joni's relationship. Others, however, saw his comments as overreach, criticizing him for publicly questioning a deeply personal decision and for escalating tensions within both the family and the broader network. The interplay between religious authority and media scrutiny created a layered narrative that was both complex and highly charged, blending spiritual concerns with organizational politics and personal choices. Within Daystar, the impact of media attention was tangible. Staff and leadership had to manage the operational challenges of running a network while dealing with the narrative being shaped externally. Questions arose about whether the organization could maintain its credibility amid the scrutiny, whether the audience would continue to trust its leadership, and whether donors and partners would remain supportive. Every broadcast, event, and public statement was viewed through a lens of speculation. Decisions that once might have been routine became symbolic, interpreted as statements about values, leadership, and morality. The network itself was drawn into the story, not simply as a backdrop to Joni's personal life, but as an active participant in the ongoing discussion about leadership and integrity. Public perception was further complicated by internal family conflict. Joni's children were vocal about their concerns, and their voices were often echoed or amplified in media coverage.